Steel City Sports back here. So today we're going to go over the first two playoff games of the NFL season, and that was the Cleveland Browns versus the Houston Texans, and the night game being the Miami Dolphins versus the Kansas City Chiefs. So one of these games was actually really exciting and fun to watch. The other one was very dull and boring to watch. If you watch both these games, you know which is which. Let's start off with the Browns-Texans game. This was the fun one. This one, the playoff atmosphere in Houston was just really exciting. You got to give it up to the Houston fans because they've been through a lot of shit over the past 3-4 years, just dealing with complete incompetency running their organization, from the GM to having David Culley and Lovie Smith being back-to-back one-and-done head coaches for them. They've had a tremendous year. I mean, I think this is one of the greatest one-year turnarounds in the history of the league, to go from last place in your division, then winning your division the very next year and winning a playoff game. It is incredible. And for the Browns, they had a great season as well. I mean, for the fact that they won 11 games, and they're arguably their two best, most important offensive players with Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb, played a very small part of the year. You know, Deshaun Watson only played in 6 games, didn't really impress me in any of those games. I mean, I think he had one good game, but none warranting that contract, of course. And Nick Chubb, the franchise player of the Browns, only played in 2 games. So the fact that they dealt with that, the fact that they had a carousel at the quarterback position, were still able to get to 11 wins. Extremely impressive. But let's talk about the specific game itself. Like I said, this was a really fun game. It started off electric. Both these teams, though, granted, there was very little defense being played in the first half of this game. Both of these teams were going up and down the field, and there were multiple just massive big plays being had, on both these teams' secondary. Specifically, it felt like the Texans were targeting Greg Newsome, because Greg Newsome was getting completely burnt this entire game. You add that with the fact that, the Browns' pass rush was extremely pedestrian, didn't really do anything this game. I probably should have looked this up, but I don't know if the Browns recorded a sack in this game. I don't think they did. I know Garrett didn't, and I know that the line was pretty mediocre. Didn't really get much pressure on C.J. Stroud. It looked like he had forever to throw in this game, and specifically in that first half, hooking up with Nico Collins. Devin Singletary. I haven't watched a lot of Texans games this year, from start to finish. Devin Singletary is a stud. Just the style he runs in, he doesn't give up on any play. He kind of reminds me of Jaylen Warren, the Steelers player, just not giving up on any play, playing your ass off on each down. That's the type of style Devin Singletary plays with, and he just wouldn't give up on these plays. It would look like he's going to get tackled for a 5-yard loss, and then he'd break off and get 15 yards. He is really good. I think he is kind of an underrated part of this Texans team, is because he's extremely productive. He was great in this game. The Browns side of things, Joe Flacco looked really good in the first half. I think he had over 200 yards. He had a touchdown. He had the connection with Njoku going, which was one of the key things we talked about in that breakdown. Was I did give the Browns the receiver and tight end advantage, because the connection between Flacco and Njoku and Amari Cooper was sensational in the 5 games he played in. Even earlier in the year, when the Browns played the Texans, Amari Cooper had the best game of his career, having 245 yards with 2 touchdowns. And Njoku statistically is a top 5 tight end in the NFL when Joe Flacco was playing this year. So the first half was really exciting, back and forth. Looked like this game might go all the way up until the final play. That's how great it looked, because both teams were responding to each other. It was back and forth, and I want to say it was 17-14 Houston going into the half. And like I said, I think the momentum was on Houston's side going into half, because they had the lead. But the third quarter changed everything in this game. If you watched it, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because Joe Flacco completely flamed out. And this was the reason why I predicted the Texans to win this game, is because I said, ultimately, I just trust C.J. Stroud in this big moment more than a 40-year-old Joe Flacco. I know he's 38, but I'm rounding up to 40. I trust Stroud more. He's been the reason why Texans have won big games this year. He has stepped up in massive clutch moments and led the Texans to wins. Whereas Joe Flacco, there's a reason why he was sitting on his couch midway through this past season, through the regular season. There's a reason why he wasn't on a team. And that's because up until that point, the past couple of years, Joe Flacco has been a very low-end quarterback in the NFL. And I was like, eventually this is going to come down to earth. And in a big game against a playoff team, it did come down to earth. And I think Flacco even acknowledged that in his press conference after the game. But yeah, throwing 2 back-to-back pick sixes, I think essentially sealed this game. After Houston not only just going up on the scoreboard, but the momentum was clearly like any momentum the Browns had was completely sucked out of the building after Flacco throws that second pick six. After that, I basically pounded the gavel. There was no chance they were going to come back, especially they had another drive after that where they were on basically the 50-yard line. They go for it. I think it was 4th and 6, and they take a sack. And yeah, their offensive line felt like, to me, it was in shambles for the entire game. It felt like they could not block anyone for Houston. Like, they were getting pressure on Joe Flacco. It felt like on almost every play, especially in that second half. So I got to give D'Amico Ryans a lot of credit. I initially gave Stefanski the head coach matchup advantage here. But that might have been the biggest thing I was wrong about in this, because D'Amico Ryans' defense came to play. They were dominant. They made a statement. They were just as impactful as C.J. Stroud for Houston winning this game. So this is cool. I really like this Houston team. They play with a confidence, a swagger that is instilled by the head coach and the quarterback. So I'm excited to see what they go on to do in the next round. Depending on how things play out, they're most likely going to go play Baltimore. They did play Baltimore this regular season in week 1, but we didn't really know what we had in week 1 with the Texans. So I think that'll be a phenomenal matchup. The Texans will be in any game just for the fact that they have that guy, number 7. He's incredible. But now let's move on to the night game, which was the Dolphins going to Arrowhead in frigid conditions. So ultimately, did the results of this game surprise me? Not at all. I predicted the Chiefs to win this. I put money on the Chiefs to win this game. I was basically at a 95% that the Chiefs would win this game. And it really came down to the quarterback matchup. Tua Tagovailoa, statistically in cold weather, is really bad throughout his entire football career. Whether it's college, whether it's the pros, he's always struggled in that. And Patrick Mahomes, I don't know if this is a controversial thing anymore, but he's just the best player in the world. I know he's had a down year statistically, coming off an MVP and a Super Bowl run last year. But Patrick Mahomes is still the most talented player in the NFL and can single-handedly win games on any given day. And it still blows my mind. I'm probably going to bring this up forever because I put out a poll on this channel asking, is Patrick Mahomes still the best player in the NFL? And about 80% of people said no, he's no longer the best in the world. And that just blows my mind because time after time, he shows in these big spots that he is the best. And I think for this game specifically, the tone was set on both these teams' first drives. After I saw the Chiefs' first drive and the Dolphins' first drives, I knew instantly how this game was going to play out because the Chiefs easily walked down the field on their opening drive and scored a touchdown with ease. It was not challenging whatsoever. I didn't think it was going to be challenging because the Dolphins were decimated by injury, but they go all the way down the field, easily score a touchdown. What do the Dolphins do? They go 3 and out on their first drive in a pretty pathetic fashion, running the ball on first down and second down, getting basically zero help from their run game, and Tua just not being able to make the play on 3rd and long. And that's essentially what happened basically this entire game, is the Chiefs moved the ball up and down the field with ease. I know that they didn't get touchdowns on a lot of drives because they got a lot of field goals. But regardless, they moved the ball down the field with ease. The Dolphins got very little production from their run game, and Tua was just not able to make the right throws on 3rd and long. He just looked off. Tua, this is one of the weirdest games I've seen from Tua because this is one of the best high-powered offenses in the NFL. You look statistically, the Dolphins rank as one of the top, maybe the top, I didn't check specifically, offenses in the entire league. And for them to look that inconsistent, that unprepared, I get it's frigid weather, but that was going to happen. That should have been a part of the game plan, the cold. And Tyreek Hill, no stranger to frigid weather in Arrowhead. He did get a touchdown. That was the only score for the Dolphins. So Tua, I guess, Tyreek gets a moral victory because he scored a touchdown at Arrowhead against his old team. But overall, the defense, and if you listen to my instant reaction last night, what I said was the Dolphins, they were dreadful to watch, and it was a flat-out pathetic performance from the Dolphins, specifically Tua Tagovailoa, not even cracking 150 passing yards and throwing one of the worst interceptions I've seen in the entire season. I mean, there was no one in the vicinity of wearing a Dolphins jersey of where he was throwing that ball, threw a terrible interception, and was just off the whole night. So the Dolphins, I'm in a weird position now with the Dolphins because I feel like I've been one of the biggest supporters of the Dolphins on this channel throughout the entire season. I've been a big supporter of Tua. I never really got why the national media always bashed Tua and said he's not good enough. And then I watched this game last night, his first playoff game, and I'm starting to see some of the arguments about his limitations. Like, he doesn't have the strongest arm. You get him a bit rattled and uncomfortable. He kind of goes off the tracks. And I just don't know with Tua, going forward. He's going into his fifth year. This is next year would be the time to pay him. If you're a Dolphins fan and you're listening to this, let me know in the comments. Are you fully confident enough to hand Tua Tagovailoa $180-190 million to be the guy to win you playoff games? Do you trust Tua in that? You could just say, this is his first playoff game. It's in a weird environment, all that. But the other side is they should have been prepared. They knew that the weather was going to be this bad. And Tua just looked bad. That's just all it comes down to. Tua was not good in this game. And going forward for the Chiefs, it's an interesting year because you could just, you could envision them back in the Super Bowl. I could, because I think the AFC is wide open. You look at some of the other top AFC teams like Buffalo, who I think Buffalo's really good. Obviously, Josh Allen is phenomenal. But if the Chiefs beat the Bills, it wouldn't surprise me that much. The Bills have never beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs in this era of the Allen versus Mahomes. I don't think you can even call it a rivalry, but whatever you want to call it, the Bills have never beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs. And the Ravens, I don't trust the Ravens. The Ravens, they have to show me before I believe in them, because last time the Ravens were the 1 seed, they blew it in their first playoff game, and Lamar was not good. I know Lamar is a much more talented player now. He's really grown as a passer. The team overall is better. But again, I need to see it. I need to see them play a playoff game first, and I'll really decide my thoughts on the Ravens probably next week. But for the Chiefs, if you turn around and see them back in the Super Bowl, would it really be that surprising when you have the best player in the world? You could also, though, see them losing because outside of Rashee Rice, they don't have a dependable receiver at all, especially Travis Kelce. I know he had, on paper, probably a good game, but he had some pretty key drops in this football game, especially a dropped touchdown. He had another couple other really ugly drops that just didn't make sense. He was visibly frustrated on the field with himself. That really worries me. So you guys let me know your thoughts on both these games. I had a blast with that first one. The second one was really a drag. I didn't enjoy it nearly as much. But overall, I'm glad playoffs are here, and we're going to have more playoff games later today, obviously, with the Packers-Cowboys, and then later on, we're going to have the Rams-Lions game. So I'm really excited for both of those. So like I said, let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe.